164,000 people got on a Zoom meeting last week labeled "White Women Answer the Call." Now, it was meant to show support for Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign, and plenty of celebrities joined, including U.S. women's soccer star Megan Rapinoe, actress Connie Britton, and singer Pink. At one point, Britton jokingly said, "Karen's for Kamala," and "we have an effing job to do." Now, the Zoom call follows a call last Sunday organized by a group supporting Harris known as Win with Black Women. That had about 44,000 attendees. On Monday, another group of over 50,000 black men joined a Zoom call to support Harris. The organizer of the White Women's Call, Sharon Watts, tweeted, quote, "Thursday night, a Zoom gathering of nearly 200,000 women who answered the call to help elect Kamala Harris in 100 days has raised $11 million. Thank you, Win with Black Women, for showing us how it's done."
Meanwhile, political commentator Matt Stoller tweeted, quote, "I got randomly put into White Guys for Harris WhatsApp group and then was almost immediately thrown out after I said a whites-only group was nuts." This is apparently common now, which speaks to my criticism here. Isn't this a little weird or ugly to go to start racially grouping people and say, you are failing in your obligation to push Kamala Harris, a black woman. What is wrong with you, white women? I don't know, there's something self-flagellating about this. I understand that white women are the only acceptable group to make fun of for some reason socially considered at this point, but I found the whole thing very self-flagellating.
No, we can make fun of white men too, Robbie.
Great, wonderful.
So I think it's weird to see the call for white men, because it's white men have been organized since the beginning of the country politically, and I think a big part of the Win with Black Women and White Women Answer the Call is about really delivering on, we have a political agenda that might be a little bit different from white men. A lot of white women were criticized because of their overwhelming support for Donald Trump in a lot of the elections. And it's come on, man, he's trying to take our rights away. Let's get politically organized. Don't just vote however your husband tells you to. There was a lot of that rhetoric of come on, get involved, make your own decision.
Rhetoric is patronizing and paternalizing that, oh, they're not making their own decisions. They're just doing what their husbands tell them. No, maybe they're saying that substantively. But it's
true. A lot of women were.
No, I don't think that at all. I think they're deciding that the policies and they're saying my husband is just telling me who to vote for.
Yes, they exist.
Well,
they won't even talk to canvassers if you knock their door. They'll be like, "Oh, what is this about?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm knocking the door for whatever candidate." They're like, "Oh, I can't talk to you about that without my husband here. My husband can talk to you instead."
Well, I am not going to invalidate your lived experience, but I think a lot of those women are voting for policies that they think are better for their interests, that they think would be better for the country.
Okay, and it's actually popular among women that abortion is not illegal in most cases. Only 33% of all women believe
Trump
abortion
is not running on making abortion
illegal.
He is running on letting the states decide that issue. There will be no national or federal abortion policy.
We're at a point where his policies and his appointments to the
Supreme Court
have
put the
resulted
issue back democratically
in Dobbs being
to the
overturned
voters.
and that right not being enshrined. And now, in a lot of states, it is the case that this very unpopular policy of abortion being illegal in most cases is reality. And so women would have liked a president that wouldn't have overturned that right and opened the door for that to happen.
A lot of people
64% of women.
The ability to have an abortion, I would not say the right, the ability to have an abortion to never be put to a vote or be subject to Democratic forces. Now it is once again subject to Democratic forces, and there is in most states a majority for keeping it available in many, many cases. And that's the way it is. And Donald Trump is not running to change that, nor is that that is the policy.
Right. But Kamala Harris and the Biden campaign has said that if legislation crosses their desk that would guarantee the right to abortion at the national level, they would sign it. This is something that's popular, and this is also something that Donald Trump's running mate has been completely on the other side of. In 2022, when he was running for Senate, he said, "I would certainly like abortion to be illegal nationally." Now women feel like they have a right to protect their rights and organize politically. And black women did criticize, rightfully so, a lot of white women for being a part of Donald Trump getting elected and our rights being taken away. And so answering the call is really about protecting our rights as women.
Okay, sure. I think it's about what policies are best for everyone in the country. I don't think this appeal to racial, white women have to help out black women. It's not about race. Trump is not running on race. None of this is about race. It's about what substantive policies we want. I mean, and again, people on the other side of the abortion issue say, well, you can say it's a right all you want, but they view it as a life being taken. You can have a right to your own affairs however you see fit, but you can't harm another person. And their view is that the entity is an individual, is something that also has rights. And so your right to have an abortion does not supersede someone else's right to be alive, to be born, and that's their view.
There's also race is a factor because black women specifically have a more difficult time receiving quality health care and receiving health care in the country. And so women standing idly by who are white while women's rights are being taken away, the communities that will be hit the hardest are minority communities, so it's about that as well. And so when it comes to organizing politically, because we live in a country where systemic racism is a reality, people feel an obligation to be organized, sometimes across race, sometimes in your racial community, sometimes with people where it's like, hey, let's talk about what's happening in our country.
Do we live in a country where there's systemic racism?
Yes.
I don't know about that.
You're not sure if we live in a country with systemic racism, Rob?
Well, we don't have racism. We used to have systemic racism, and then we...
And we cured it?
We ended systemically racist policies. We still have racist people. But there are people who are racist here. It's not unique to America. People are racist in every part of the world. Actually, attitudes towards race are far more tolerant in the United States than they are in many European countries, to say nothing of everywhere else.
The bar's in hell by that standard, Robbie.
We eliminated, it is illegal to discriminate based on race. It is, race has been taken out of our policies and our legal system, and that's a good thing. So we are not, I would not say we're a systemically racist country, no. I would say we've been systemically racist in the past, or we've had racially discriminatory or worse, racial violence as part of the society, and we have largely moved past that, and we've achieved a great thing, and I think it's knocking our progress a little bit to say that we're systemically racist now.
Okay, so the percent of black Americans in the general U.S. population is about 13%. Sure. The percent of black people in prison or jail is 37%.
There are still racial disparities in our society. Yes, of course. Black people are more likely to be in jail, they're more likely to be poor, they're more likely to suffer violence.
How do they get in jail?
Because they're more likely to live in places where there is more crime.
Where there's more police. And so,
well, there's more. That's a chicken and egg. There's more police there because there's more crime there.
Well, the data shows that police disproportionately engage with black Americans.
But not out of proportion to the amount of crime in areas where there are black Americans.
There's no data on crime independent of policing. All of our data on crime comes from police reporting crime. It's not a crime unless you get in trouble with an officer for it. People do illegal things all the time and don't get caught by a police officer, but the crime still happens.
Okay, but the violent crime and property theft are more common in areas where the average income is lower, and those are areas that are disproportionately minority, and so there's more crime there.
Why is that the case, Robbie?
No, because of the legacy of the policies. I'm not saying there. Again, I'm not saying there's no racial disparity or there's no. But we got rid of the policies. You said systemic racism. We got rid of the system of racism. We still have racism, and we're still dealing with the consequences of it. But we have corrected the policies.
We have to correct the impact as well. So it's still systemic racism if the system does not correct the impact. So we had slavery, chattel slavery in the United States for many, many years. There are still people in Mississippi who have a high concentration of wealth. And that is because it's been passed down for generations, and it's wealth made off of the free labor of slaves. We see all kinds of income disparities because the system allows these people to keep that wealth. Unless we correct the distribution of wealth, there will always be systemic racism in the United States.
So people can't achieve wealth unless it's given to them by someone else?
that seems to be the case for a lot of wealthy people in Mississippi who have been given wealth off of the free labor
There's
of
no
the black,
way for people to
black
improve
Americans
their
who were
situation
enslaved.
or their standing in our country without the government confiscating wealth from someone else and giving it to them.
It's not confiscating wealth. The wealth was
Then we would just have a
confiscated
different
on the
system of
onset.
inequality.
The wealth was confiscated from the black people who did the labor to produce it by the white elites in the South.
Well, anything that belongs to someone else should be returned to them. So
Yeah.
I don't
so
have any problem with
reparations,
that.
Robbie, that's great. So I think systemic
For
racism
people who
has
descended from slave, no, the reparations conversation is about rewarding all people of one race. Now, if you can demonstrate that you specifically were, or your descendants to some kind of inheritance situation had property stolen from you, then yes, it should be returned at some
very
point.
good.
Although there's got to be a statute of limitations to that eventually, because we're all on somebody else's land, and we all have somebody, going back a million years, and we all descend from the same amoeba, if we go back far enough. So there has to be some end to this. But no, the reparations is about awarding everyone based on skin color some kind of boon. That I utterly oppose.
Yeah, I think there are some people who define systemic racism as any structure of government or power that is inherently racist. So police
That's how I'm defining
over-policing
it.
black neighborhoods. Many people call that systemic racism.
But that's not inherently racist. It's not inherent. There's more policing there because there's more violence and crime. That has to be fixed, but it's not inherent to the policing system. There are some racist police officers, there are some racist firefighters, there are some racist teachers, there are racist people in every facet of society. But the disproportionate harm in policing is because of the actual reality of what is happening in the areas that are disproportionately, not exclusively, but disproportionately African American.
There is a reason that crime correlates with poverty, right?
Right.
And there's a reason that poverty correlates with people of color.
Right.
But the overpolicing we're seeing is very dramatic. And we see even in the same neighborhoods.
You call it overpolicing.
People who are black are
You call it
stopped
overpolicing. You ask people in those neighborhoods, they say they want better police services. They don't say they don't want no police. No police is to stigmatize the group we were talking about at the beginning, is a white, liberal, progressive elite desire.
But we're not debating getting
not
rid
the
of the
desire that
police right now,
anybody
Robbie.
in the communities want. They want better policing.
That's not what we're talking
They
about.
feel under-policed.
That's not at all what we're talking about. We're talking about police officers who have a racial bias who stop black people in the same neighborhood
This
more
is a
than they stop
fantasy.
white
Again, this
people.
is a progressive elite
It
fantasy.
is demonstrated in the data. And so when we talk about
Because
systemic racism,
there is more
and we
reason
talk
to
about the
stop
police,
people
we
in these
talk about how
communities.
the police is an institution that came out of slave patrols. Yes,
That's
if
not
you
true.
rely on prior
It's not
policing
true.
data,
It's utterly untrue.
that's literally what the history shows if you follow the institution
that's
of
what the-
policing.
that's what the made-up
not
Nicole
to say
Hannah
there
Jones
can't be
history
people
says.
who are
It's not
good
true.
police officers who want to change this, but when we talk about systemic racism, we talk about people being denied a job because they have a name that is the name that people would associate with someone who is black or African American.
Alex Chang. That's the person who gets denied the position because there's, again, of the affirmative action policies that liberal elites support.
Who's Alex Chang, Robbie?
An Asian person.
Okay. So I think we can all agree that there are racial stereotypes that often dictate how people make
No, I'm not
decisions.
saying, no, that's not a stereotype. That's a reality of people in elite education. Those are the people that are denied positions.
And if this impacts them in the criminal justice system and the economic system, I would identify that as systemic racism, but we're going to have to leave this one here. We've got more rising after this, or more rising tomorrow?
We've got more rising tomorrow. That's the end of our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Always a fun and spirited debate, and we're just kicking off the week, so lots to come. Tune
Yes. Lots more to come. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while you're on the go, we are available wherever you get your podcasts.
in. See you tomorrow.
Bye, y'all.